Good morning, everybody. Good morning. What a great crowd.
What event was that?
On a cold Monday morning. Thank you for coming out this morning.
Oh, you didn't go?
So my name is Laurel Ruggles, and I'm co-hosting this first. You still can't hear?
Hey guys, can you keep it down? Wow, that worked.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Is it a little better?
Yes.
All right. Is this better? I'll hold it closer. Good morning, everyone. My name is Laurel Ruggles, and I'm co-hosting this first of the 2023 season, Northeast Kingdom-sponsored legislative breakfast. I want to start by just quickly thanking our sponsors, the Passumpsic Bank, Northeast Kingdom Human Services, Green Mountain Association of Realtors, and also Diane's not out here, but Diane Coburn and her staff for putting up the light breakfast. So this is a chance for everyone to hear, like a democracy at work. You get to hear directly from your legislators this morning. We are expecting a few more to show up, so hopefully they'll come in as we're doing some of the introductory things here today. If you're not familiar with the format, we do allow each legislator to get up, say who they are, explain what committees they are, what their legislative priorities are, give them a few minutes, and then if time allows, we open it up for questions from the audience. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Darcy. Darcy McCann is the Northeast Kingdom, the director of the Northeast Kingdom Chamber, and she's got a few words for you this morning.
Welcome everybody. We're really glad to see you all. It's so good to get these events started up again. It's so wonderful. So thank you all for coming. Thank you for Kingdom Access Television they'll be broadcasting this later. We'll be putting it on Facebook so people who can't attend today can also see it. And also thank you for the Caledonian Record for their continuing coverage of this event. It just gets the word out to so many more people. One of the things I just really wanted to speak about early on here is just what we owe to some people that came before me. When I first came and started the legislative breakfast as a director back in 1995, Ken Hammer was our moderator. Just really respected businessman and really sage advisor in the community. And for about 10 years, he was our moderator here. When he got busy with activities up at the college, teaching and whatnot, guess who took over? His wife, Gretchen Hammer, equally as a force in this community and region, serving on the select board. I think she was the first female select board chair in St. Johnsbury's history. So we owe a debt of gratitude to Ken and Gretchen Hammer. So we wanted to just thank them at this time.
That's Russ Ingalls right there.
What'd you say?
That's Senator Ingalls right there.
Okay. And can we ask Senator Russ Ingalls to come up to the table? Nice try, sir. One of the other aspects I think people out there should know, everybody knows what a chamber does. One of the things we've done in the last year is we've established a business assistance center. And it's been extremely popular. It's where businesses and residents can talk with us about some of the obstacles and challenges they're facing. And they can call us or contact us through email. I left some cards over there. So if you ever need any assistance of any kind, starting a business, growing a business, some of red tape issues, give us a yell. We've, believe it or not, handled about 100 issues in the last year and are getting a couple a week. And really that goes to the heart of what we do as a chamber, is trying to help them with workforce issues and workforce development issues. At this time, I'd like to bring up Judy Kurtz. She's been involved. She has a presentation out near the door from the Twin State Rail Trail Working Group, and then I'm going to be introducing another new person.
Thanks so much to Darcy McCann for this opportunity to present to you the Twin State Rail Trail Project. And we also want to thank our legislators, our senators and representatives, for their service to our communities and to our state. Last April 2022, Tom Sexton, the Regional Director for the Northeast of the National Rail Trail Conservancy, searched out and found a group of us from the Northeast Kingdom of Vermont as well as northern New Hampshire that had done some work toward researching possible new rail trails in these two states. Tom was looking for connectivity in New England for a planned 1,000-mile trail network. He gathered a group of us together, first on Zoom and then in person, and this was the beginning of the 15-member Twin State Rail Trail Working Group. Have you heard of the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail? Okay. Have you heard of the exempt Twin State Railroad?
Yes.
A few maybe. The Twin State Railroad has been exempt for more than 20 years, and it's overgrown with small shrubs, trees, and weeds and grass. But it is the gem in the rough which we are promoting as an important connector between the LVRT, the Lamoille Valley Trail, and the New Hampshire-Ammonoosuc Trail, a very important link to the New England Rail Trail system. The Twin State Railroad corridor is one that begins in St. Johnsbury, not far from the termination of the Lamoille Valley Trail. The switch is behind the former Ide buildings and passes through St. Johnsbury, East St. Johnsbury, Kirby, Concord, and ends at the road into the Gilman Mill. This piece of 21 miles is owned by CSX and is managed from their regional office in Albany, New York. Rather shockingly, though, 20-some years ago, the state of New Hampshire purchased not only the 5.6 miles of the Twin State Railroad in Dalton and Whitefield, but also the railroad bridge across the Connecticut River and 1 8/10 miles of Vermont corridor, track leading to the siding into the Gilman Mill. So the progress of the New Hampshire and Vermont portions of this railroad are different because New Hampshire already owns their portion. And so Mary Ann Borowski, sitting over here, is the co-chairman for New Hampshire. I'm the co-chairman for Vermont for this project. It's a joint collaboration. And so New Hampshire, because they already own their track, have been given approval by the New Hampshire Department of Transportation to begin preparing engineering, environmental, and historical preservation studies to include in a legal document that will be sent to the National Surface Transportation Board. This will request rail banking designation for their portion of the trail. Where are we in Vermont? Well, we're here today, and my purpose in being here is to interest and excite you in this project with the ultimate purpose of bringing the state of Vermont to purchase the 21 miles of corridor from CSX to convert to rail trail. In the lobby, you may have noticed we're here today, and we have a group of our talented working group, Mary Ann Borowski, our co-chair from New Hampshire, Mike O'Hara, who has served 11 years on the Lamoille Valley Trail Board, very experienced, and Stephen Bean from Concord, who's very active in the Miles Pond Association as well as ATV stuff. So we have our name tags on, and we will be in the lobby after the meeting to share flyers, gives contact information, seals with our logo. That bridge on the design is the bridge across the Connecticut River. And bicycles. These are paper clips, little bicycle paper clips. So come see us. We hope you will join us in moving forward with this very exciting project.
Nicely done. Thank you. I'd now Pardon me. I'd now like to invite Karen Conroy up. And let's all give her a big welcome. She's the new superintendent of the St. Johnsbury Schools.
Good morning, and thank you for the warm welcome. Again, my name is Karen Conroy. I started in July here in St. Johnsbury. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I moved here in '88 in the North Country from northern Maine. I've lived here ever since. I worked in private industry for almost 20 years in the paper industry, in the field of technology and supporting adults with professional development and training. So education has always been a part of my passion. Moved into the education field and worked in New Hampshire for 10 years. In the last 5 years, I've been up north in Essex, Essex North Supervisory Union as their superintendent, and was very excited to see an opening come available here in St. Johnsbury. I live in Vermont. I live on the Connecticut River, not far from the railway over there, in Bloomfield, Vermont. I have 2 children that also live a few miles from me, one in Leamington and one in Lunenburg, and with 3 grandchildren. And just very excited to be here in St. Johnsbury. I can say that I've never worked in such a supportive community, really embracing the needs of our students, and look forward to speaking with our representatives on, again, how we can continue and look at opportunities to help our students thrive and do their best. I am very familiar with high schools, and I was a CTE director as well. So I understand from an elementary point of view what we need to prepare our students for college and careers. So I'm just very excited to be here. And I look forward to meeting all of you and interacting with you. And feel free at any time to reach out if you have any questions or would like to develop any partnerships. That is one thing I see in St. Johnsbury, that it's very resource rich, and we really take advantage of that and those learning opportunities for our students to grow right here in the community. And I did bring some flyers with me today on our strategic plan. The St. Johnsbury School District and the board helped me starting off with the plan of attack for the next 5 years. And so I offer those to you. Feel free to take one. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. And thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And now for the main event. We're going to hear from our legislators. By convention, we start with our senators. So we'll start with Senator Jane Kitchell, and then Senator Russ Ingalls, and then we'll have Scott Beck, and then Scott Campbell. So they'll come up and they'll just speak for a few minutes. Because we've had some redistricting, if you would just, besides introducing yourself, what district you cover, what committees you are involved in, and what you're working on this year.
Thank you, Laurel. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here, and obviously an honor to represent this area of Vermont. I'm Jane Kitchell, and I live in Danville, and I am now in a single-seat district. The Northeast Kingdom and part of other Lamoille, part of Franklin, actually was created to have two-seat districts. But with the growth in population in Franklin County and Chittenden County, there had to be reapportionment to keep that representation equal. So we now have 3 one-seat districts, and I'm in Caledonia District, which includes St. Johnsbury and really south, including the one Orange County town of Newbury, and then the western towns of Walden, Stannard, and Walden, and then Wheelock, and then obviously Reigate and Groton and Peacham and so forth. So it's cut the district about in half, and let me tell you, people in Hardwick didn't have a clue. They were in the same Senate district as West Fairleigh. So that has resulted in a much smaller geographical area for us, unless you're covering Essex because of the small population there. So now that's why Lyndonville, and they had to divide up the towns based on population. So Senator Ingalls is here, and he represents some of those northern county towns, including the town of Linden. So I chair the Senate Budget Committee, and this time of year I'm a very popular person, but I expect by spring my popularity will be at a low ebb because we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions. And so many times everything comes down to money. In Vermont we have just one budget, so all spending in state government comes through the appropriations committees. The transportation bill is a plan, but the funding to support that plan is in the budget itself. The same is true. The capital bill may be bonding, but the payment for the debt service has to be budgeted, and it's in the big bill. So it struck me that oftentimes we talk about our committees and what we're doing, and we aren't very good about providing a context. So I serve as chair of appropriations. I'm also a member of the Transportation Committee and have been since 2007. And I've been on appropriations since I first came to the Senate. Part of that, I think, was because I was 35 years in state government with the Agency of Human Services, which is about half of state government. So let me just run through what the budget process looks like. First of all, the budget starts with the governor in the executive branch, and the governor proposes his spending. In the fall, there's an opportunity for everyone to come forward and make their requests, and then he determines what will be priorities for his budget. Then it would go to the House appropriations because just like on the tax side, on the spending side, the House starts first. And I'm pointing to Scott Beck because he's on the Ways and Means Committee in the House. And then after it passes the House, it comes to the Senate. And then we obviously do our own work on it. Sometimes additional requests come in, sometimes problems pop up. And then we have to have a committee of conference to work out the differences, and that becomes the final budget. So that's the process that we follow. Now, when we're building a budget, we're using estimates, caseloads, cost projections, and so forth, sometimes as far as 18 months out. And so right now, we're in the process of what we call our budget adjustment, which is to true up this year's fiscal budget with actual spending and experience to date. And so there's some areas where, in fact, spending has been quite a bit higher, and then other areas where the caseloads were lower, and therefore the appropriation was not, didn't need to be as great. So one of the things that I would like to point out when we've gone around, the three big things that come to as top priorities are housing, broadband, and childcare. That's what we've been hearing. Employers are saying childcare is important to them, stabilizes workforce, doesn't to hire, recruit, et cetera. It's timely, time-consuming, and very expensive. So we had 100 employers sign that childcare was very important to them in terms of workforce and stabilizing workforce and allowing parents to come into the workforce as well. So one of the things that, just to put it in perspective, we've had a lot of money come as a result of COVID. And to date, we have, in broadband, appropriated $360 million. Now, there's a grant opportunity, and so the budget adjustment includes $30 million that would be the match for a grant, which would bring down another almost $120 million. So that's not inconsequential, 360 plus 120. On housing, another need is $320 million. And so that takes a while to get through, and actually people will see the benefit. You can't appropriate money for housing, and housing is available, the next month. The one thing that I would say is in budget adjustment, of course, everybody's coming forward and making requests. So you've been reading the paper. Organic farmers wanted $9 million. The housing advocates wanted $50 million more. And the budget adjustment normally is a very truing up or responding to something that might be emergency or unanticipated, but once again, we're getting requests. Every year, and former Representative Feltus has experienced this, the number of requests for funding exceeds what we have for revenue by several hundreds of millions of dollars. So it's easy to, and we always say, well, maybe the state will take care of it. And I just remind you, the state is us, 640,000 people. And how we want to raise revenues, what are our priorities, really is going to be that collective reflection of what what the people of Vermont want. Now, the budget, the governor's proposed it. The House will be taking it up soon once they get the budget adjustment out. My statement, when the press asked, I said, it's not only what's in it, but what's not in it. And there are key areas. There's no secret that our mental health delivery system is in crisis. People are very concerned about the ability to respond. It's important, and the COVID experience has only exacerbated mental health needs. The governor's budget level funds our entire mental health system, which means no proposed increase to help with salaries to meet operating costs for many facilities are operated, so there's nothing for the increased cost of food or fuel. Now, that's of great concern to us, and so that's an example of something that is not in the budget. And the one thing, mental health, unlike other parts of our healthcare delivery system, it's really funded entirely through the state budget. So they don't have other payers and other payer mixes to sort of help with this. The other area, which is really important, I think, for our goal of keeping seniors and people with disabilities in their homes would be the services we provide, the aid services, the personal care, nursing services that are provided to people in their homes. Youth service bureaus, all of those community-based provider systems are level funded. So when you talk about workforce and workforce pressures, to have key systems that we rely on to help kids not end up in maybe in the juvenile system or whatever, they're suffering as much as any other place with workforce shortages, but not to include any kind of increase is something that would be making something that is not very stable even more so. So I sometimes say what we do in state government is we want to add more rooms while our foundation is crumbling. And I would say that for me, one of the top priorities is to say, how well are we doing with our current commitments? Because we have a long list of very significant, and you would say that they're very good. No one's debating the merit. The question is, how does it stack up? And if you use taxing capacity one place, you don't have it available to address another, maybe more compelling need. And every advocacy organization has got their top priority, and they come in, and that's what they look at. Appropriations has to look at everything in totality. So that's our challenge, and I thought Darcy was giving me the hook.
Just taking a picture of Scoop.
So, please understand there are many, many bills that get introduced. Just because it's introduced doesn't mean it's going to be passed. And nor do we have an encyclopedic knowledge of every bill and every topic that some committee is dealing with. We'll do our best, but oftentimes we'd be asked about, well, what do you think about blah, 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 and it's like you hadn't even heard of it. And chances are it might be one that the committee will never take up. So there are hundreds of bills that we call stay on the wall. And so I just want to let you know, oftentimes I get emails that suggest that the person who's heard about the bill assumes that it's going to be passed. So I just want to say it has to be introduced, it's referred to a committee, and then the committee and the chair will determine how that bill is acted on, if at all. So that's a little background about the legislative process. And then, of course, we have the governor on the other side. And if he doesn't like a bill, he can veto it. And as you know, he will. And we sometimes can override a veto, but generally that's a very heavy lift. So much work ahead. This is the first meeting. And we are, just want to commend the fortitude. Judy invited me to a meeting 5 years ago about the potential of the rail trail. And then it kind of fell off the track, so to speak. And now knowing that the current owner might be interested, the agency has actually attempted to contact the current owner to see about potential purchase. But of course, like anything, if there's knowledge the state is interested in helping fund, sometimes the cost becomes a little higher. So that has to be done with caution. So thank you, everyone, and great to see you. And if you have any questions, I know many of you have no qualms about shooting me an email. So thank you. I guess Russ is next.
Thank you. That's a pretty tough act to follow right there. Jane always does a pretty comprehensive job. And Russ Ingalls redistricted from about 46 or 47 towns to 25. So I feel like my workload's kind of decreased a little bit. That starts out in Orleans County, Newport City, Derby, Holland, Morgan, up around across. Then you start getting into the Essex communities of Island Pond and Bloomfield and Lunenburg and right down the river and right over here to Concord and Lindenville. So it takes me about 4.5 hours to drive around the whole district. But I'm really thankful that I have the district. I like to think that I'm a powerful voice that will stand up for the folks that probably their voice hasn't been heard in a long time. I just think that a vast area such as that, which is about 1/5 of the state of Vermont, ought to have somebody down there speaking on their behalf and standing up for what you believe in and making myself available. I'll also say that I really think that we're very blessed to have the representation that we have in our area, other than a few people that are probably not as focused what they should be. The focus in this area is very, very strong. And as Jane pointed out, yes, we did lose one senator. But we have a wealth of chairmanships all across the board on both the House and the Senate sides, and our representatives are dispersed well throughout all the government. That seems to be pretty important to our area. So, pretty excited about that. I am chair of institutions, Senate institutions. That's a committee that basically handles all of the state's buildings. We bond through CDAC. They tell us how much every year that we can safely bond for, and this year that number was $108 million. The problem is that we had $225 million worth of asks, as Jane has said. The asks far outweigh what we can accomplish. The governor has thrown in another one-time funds of $96 million, so that puts us up to $203 million. Gets us a little closer to that ask, but we're preparing this economy for a little bit of a downturn. And in institutions, we're looking at some of the underperforming buildings that have been high maintenance costs and looking for ways to liquidate some of those. You might see that there's one in Burlington that we're interested in having somebody else own it. It's been a building that's cost the state a lot of money to keep it upgraded. There's a parking garage. It seems to be a little bit problematic. And when you keep on throwing millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars into a building, you gotta sometimes have to ask, when do you cut it? When do you cut? When do you cut and run? And seeing how this is in a very popular part of Burlington, we're thinking about maybe that we might want to sell that building. We're selling a few around the complex capital complex, buildings that no longer are serving a need. We're finding that the workplace, with still a lot of state employees are working from home, as is the draw into Vermont. There we have a lot of people that have the ability to work from home, and as you do that, you have to size up your space that you have and make it most effective. I'm also on Senate Transportation. I serve with Jane. We handle a lot of the state budgets there. That budget's up about, I think, 8%, where it was. 4% of that might have been fixed costs, but overall about 4% above where we were last year after you figure in the inflations and fixed costs. We're looking to be transformational in our changes. You've seen a lot of paving. You're seeing a lot of bridge repair. These dollars that came from Washington, they're going away. We have about $1.1 billion, and then some more monies that came in through Leahy and Sanders and Welch's efforts. But that money is we'll still feel the effects of it because there's a burn rate. There's projects that are going to be out there for the next 4 or 5 years, but that money's going away. But the asks aren't. We have to be careful about what we do in the state as far as putting projects out there or programs out there that aren't funded after this money is gone. All the economists are talking about a downturn. We're going to remain positive. We're going to push hard. We're going to make sure that all the monies that we're giving from the state and the federal level that we're spending wisely. There are a lot of indicators out there that we're not doing as well as a population that we need to. There seems to be an overwhelmingly a shortage on health care. Child care. And this pandemic has just brought on things that we've never experienced before, so we have to be wise on the way that we figure that out. You can't put the cart before the horse. We have to figure out how we can work within the budget and figure out how we can help these folks with some child care and pull some of these people back into the workforce that we so desperately need. So there's several different proposals. The governor's got a proposal out there. The Democrats have a proposal out there. So as they work through committees, we'll see what works out of those things to keep it affordable for Vermont. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that I'm looking forward to, is trying to figure out a way how we can make sure that we don't cause you any more pain by putting programs out there that are just going to take more tax dollars. Housing is just huge. It's just a hard thing to figure out how you can lose population like we're losing. We're gaining in some parts of the state, but we're losing in the rural parts of it, but yet we just don't seem to have enough housing. There's a ton of programs out there for some of the dilapidated structures that could be brought to life. I think we saw in St. Johnsbury, the one down there right in the center of town, kind of a crowning jewel to take a building that was crumbling down around itself and then fix that back up and look what it's done for the community now. You've got that nice bright building. You have storefronts that have never been rented before in the past 20 years, and now they're rented. But what I like about it is when you look around in that section of town, what it's done for the other property owners there. They've got new signage. We've got the new healthcare facility that's in there that's helping people that maybe don't have primary care but can walk in and get health care. And you just look around and it just seems to have really lifted up that part of town. We have millions and millions and millions of dollars within the state for a lot of different projects, and with housing being one of them. And we have a project up in Newport right now that was part of an old high school up there, and that building just seems to sit there and crumble, and the rural edge has taken hold of that and put a hold on that and trying to investigate how we can get maybe another 30 units up there. But it just costs. It costs a lot, and everybody's mindful of that. Jane had mentioned just the problem that we're having with the youth and their mental health, and it's disheartening. It really, really is. I had a situation where I had a friend of mine, but more of an acquaintance, I guess, but somebody I could call their first name on the street and have a conversation with, and called me to let me know that their child had said 4 times that he really wanted to hurt himself, and nobody was paying attention to it. And so I made the phone call, as what you do, only to find out by me intervening, I'm putting this child in front of 80 other people that were probably having the same, 80 other kids that were probably having the same, maybe not as severe, but still the same needs and the same wants. And thankfully, were able to interject into this one child's life and got him so that he didn't want to hurt himself anymore. But then it opens up your eyes to the other 80 that we jumped ahead of, and how we can best serve them. I think that as much as curing that, we need to look back to where all that problem started. And maybe that was on the surface before the pandemic, but the pandemic certainly has made it so that it certainly has brought it forward and taken kids and people that were very fragile and put them in situations where now we're really behind the 8 ball with that. We have to figure out, as Jane had said before, we got to make sure that we're not throwing money on a crumbling foundation to try to address this problem. We got to take these dollars, make them strategic, and put them where they can there's immediate impact to get our mental health a little bit better. There's some pressures on our education systems. There's some folks that want to punish schools that might be independent, that they want to change that funding a little bit and make it harder for them and things. And I've met with Linden Institute. I've met with North Country. I've met with some other schools that are, just wondering where that's all going. And I think that we have to be very, very careful about choosing sides on anything like that, and just get back to, with all that these kids have been through, get back to just making sure that we put kids first. That's what we got to do. Education needs to put kids first, and whether it's education, whether it's mental health, whether it's child care at the end of the day, we just got to figure out on how we can make sure that happen. Are we good? I mean, am I getting the hook?
Yes, you are.
Okay. Okay, so, well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And if anybody needs anything at any time, whether you're in my district or not, just give me a holler, and I'm always here to help.
Thank you very much, Senator.
Good morning. My name is Scott Beck, and I represent Concord, Kirby, and St. Johnsbury. That district used to be just St. Johnsbury, went from being the smallest two-seat district in the state to the largest two-seat district in the state by population. But that's great, because I love Concord and Kirby. This is my fifth term. My first two, I was on House Education, and my last three, I'm on the Ways and Means Committee. That's a fancy name for a committee that writes tax policy. We're the first part of the session, especially with this many new members. We have over 60 in the House and Senate. Ways and Means is kind of a sleepy committee. We're having a lot of 101 briefings, and we're waiting for spending decisions to be made so that we'll know how much we have to raise. It seems that likely there will be 3 efforts this year to increase spending through the creation of new programs in the state of Vermont: universal school meals, family medical leave, and early child care. Those are all 3 initiatives for which people are looking for money. Could be upwards, all 3 of them, full boat would be about $400 million. Have no idea what will finally make it to the finish line. The good news is that this sleepiness that Ways and Means suffers from in the first month of the session allows me to focus on other things, and I have something important to focus on right now. Russ alluded to it a little bit, but that is the attempt by a very well-positioned and funded group in Montpelier to end public tuitioning in the state of Vermont. And public tuitioning is the system whereby a district can choose to not operate a public school and send their kids wherever they want to go for those years. The most common is around here, is where most of the districts, they educate up through grade 8 in public schools, and then they publicly tuition for the high school years. There's a group in Montpelier, they're called the Alliance. They're made up of the Vermont NEA, the School Boards Association, the Superintendents Association, and the Principals Association. They're very well funded. They've put a lot of money into elections around the state, and they're trying to end public tuitioning. Fortunately, the facts aren't really on their side, and their arguments and their leadership really suffer. So we're able to, get our voices out there and beat this thing back. But to say it's become quite annoying is quite the understatement. So I'm focused pretty heavily on that because I know how important public tuitioning is to this area. Hopefully, it won't go any further than just a conversation, but it's a pretty loud conversation over there right now. So I'll save the rest of my time for questions.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scott Campbell. I am also a representative from St. Johnsbury, Concord, and Kirby, seatmates with Mr. Beck here. I'm starting my third term, and I'm on my third committee. I'm not sure what that means, but either I'm a total failure or a total pain. So I'm on transportation this time, which is new to me. Sorry? Okay, how's that? Okay. Let's see, I'm on transportation this time. Here we are about to start our, fourth week, I guess, of sort of substantive meetings. The first week is kind of just ceremonial. The first 2 weeks, we got just an overview of what the transportation budget is all about. The Agency of Transportation does a lot of stuff. Of course, highways and DMV, and they also run all the snow plows, so they have a fleet of trucks and they maintain all that stuff. And then they're also planning for other modes of transportation. So transit, I see Caleb Grant is here with RCT. And of course, rail trails, they have taken over, the Agency of Transportation has taken over the Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. And we're also hoping that they've been talking about the Twin State Trail as well, or Twin State Railroad as an option for a trail. So last Friday, a week ago, we got the governor's budget, and so this past week, we're digging into the budget and hearing about where all the money goes. Something like almost $900 million. I think it's 860, something like that, this coming year, out of a budget that is a little over $8 billion, which is about a third more than it was before the pandemic. And the money is about a third more money is being spent in transportation as well. You might have noticed that the roads are actually a little bit better than they have been. Route 2 has gotten paved between here and Montpelier, which I'm very happy about. And the number of roads in poor condition, the sort of percentage of roads in poor condition and bridges in poor condition has been continuing to go down. So we're getting late here, and I want to leave time for questions as well. I got a lot more I could say, but I think I should leave time for questions.
So we have about 12 minutes for questions. I just would like to remind everybody, a friendly reminder, that this is a chance to hear from our legislators. So we do ask that you frame your comments in the form of a question that the legislators can respond to. I will handle the microphone up here, and Darcy's going to go into the audience.
Who has a question?
First one's always the toughest, then it gets going.
And please introduce yourself.
My name is Abby Campbell, and I'm on the school board. So I get to work with Karen on a regular basis, and I will say emphatically that we're really lucky and pleased to have her. This has to do with the CLE. As you know, we've come out with some CLE numbers. This has to do with the common level appraisal of how we fund our schools.
What is CLE?
And I talk fast. It stands for the common level of appraisal, and it's part CLE. I'm sorry, I misspoke. And it's all part of the public funding mechanisms in the state, and it's highly complicated. But it has to do with how we structure our budgets and how much money is coming in so that we can know how much money we have to spend. Many towns in the state, including St. Johnsbury, many of our surrounding towns, have a lower rate this year, which affected us highly as we're structuring our budget and reduced our revenue significantly. What do you think the chances are for that to be? My understanding is there is a mechanism towards the end of the legislative budget season to take a look at that statewide and to address some of those deep funding disparities that we're looking at. Is that possible, probable?
No to the answer to your last question. We'll get there.
Okay.
So here's what I want to tell everybody about CLA. CLA does not change by 1 penny the tax bill that a property taxpayer pays. All CLA is, we have a statewide education fund, which means that every property in every corner of the state has to be valued correctly at fair market value for the whole thing to be fair and work, okay? Well, obviously, not every district, not every town gets reappraised every year to fair market value. So what CLA does is it corrects for that delta between tax appraised value and fair market value, okay? So basically what I'm saying is this. The only way to get rid of your CLA, so your CLA is 0, is to do a property reappraisal in your town. When you do that property reappraisal, your values will move to where your CLA would have been anyway, and you will pay the exact same tax rate that you would have paid anyway, okay? Also, if that doesn't, calm your nerves, if you're one of the 70% of the people in the state of Vermont that pay your education taxes based on your household income and not your property value, CLA means nothing for you, okay? Because you pay on your household income, which is not property specific. I certainly understand the angst that school districts get because it shows up in the rate they have to charge their taxpayers, but as far as the amounts of money that their taxpayers pay, it makes not a penny of difference. Now,
But it does to our budget, and we just did a reappraisal in St. Johnsbury.
no, it doesn't touch your budget at all. It only changes your tax rate that the district has to present to the voters that pay on property. So could it be changed? Oh, I mean, I guess we could raise everybody's CLA by 5 or whatever, but if we did that, then we would just have to lower the yields and raise the average property tax rate, and that would just be a circular. Everybody would still pay the same amount of money. It just,
Any additional questions?
happy to talk more with anybody about it afterwards.
I just have a comment.
Hold on.
Here you go. I just have a comment. I'm 72. I'm still working. I love my job. I have a great job, and I'm physically able to work. So, but I'm also old enough to collect Social Security, and this year I'm going to have to start collecting my retirement savings. So I pay a lot of taxes, and I've saved. I've worked. My mortgage was 11%. I didn't get any state help. I paid my own child care, paid my own college loan. It's a tiny bit frustrating when I feel like the state is making such an immature citizenship. You're treating citizens like they're babies. They're not growing up, and they're depending on you for everything. So I'll pay a lot of taxes this year, and I love being a taxpayer. I think this is a great place to live. But a lot of people in my situation leave because it's too expensive to live here.
Do you have a question?
No, I don't. It's just a comment.
Okay.
You want to respond to it, fine.
All right. Would anybody like to respond to that?
Thanks for the comment. We do feel your pain, and I think it's, I think that there are some pushes to raise revenues through taxes this year, and we have to be very careful about that. 80% of our population, especially in this area, are paycheck to paycheck. And we have to be very, very, very careful. And I think that that is a very statement that you just made, a very powerful voice, and I think that we need more emails to our legislators to make sure that we stay within ourselves, that we don't raise taxes after trying to keep up with this historic federal money that's coming down to an end. So yes, very, very powerful. I hear you, and I stand with you. Not interested in raising anybody's taxes, and I hope that all of our legislators feel that same way.
I have a question. Does the governor's bill, if I understand it, does not raise any taxes?
Doesn't raise any taxes. That's correct.
That's correct. Actually, there's some proposals to, one of the things that Vermont has is a progressive income tax. So it's not necessarily the source of your income, it's the amount. And so there are ways that we've set income sensitized, like on property taxes. As Scott said, 70% of Vermonters pay their home, their taxes, property taxes on their homestead based on income. The other thing that we are looking at, frankly, in transportation, some of us are looking at, and that is we normally, and under statute, have every 3 years a cycle of adjusting fees for inflation, and they're user fees. They would be like restaurants to pay to have their kitchens inspected for health conditions, or we pay them for driver's licenses or registration to help underwrite the cost. The foregone revenues for that, and that's part of what we're getting into, is starting a new precedent of moving general fund over to support transportation. But the funds that have not increased would be about 15 million statewide. A couple of bucks maybe on an individual. So the question ultimately becomes one, if we're looking at the budget, the governor's budget is proposing to use one-time money to support ongoing transportation expenditures. And that is something that we are very cautious about, using one-time money to support ongoing fiscal obligations. So I think there will be some look at fees, to be honest. And the same is true for professional regulation, because those fees support the boards that oversee complaints and compliance with the professional standards. So yes, there's no proposed increase. There, as I say, many of these initiatives, people will say, well, gee, out of all that money, you ought to be able to squeeze out $400 million. Well, those of us who have worked with the money know that the big areas of spending are K through 12, and then our health care. And after that, transportation, but it's relatively small in the scheme of things. So if we really want to look at a major child care package, I said we have this condition. It's the left and right. I want it, I need it, it's important, but it shouldn't cost me anything. And I haven't figured out how to close that gap. I think it's an undiagnosed neurological condition because you can't say, this is something we want without saying, and I'm prepared to help underwrite the cost. So the estimated price tag on child care, and because child care providers are losing their most highly skilled teachers to, say, the K through 12 system, there's been a tremendous amount of advocacy, you're seeing it on TV, to address that. But it takes money to do it. And so how you are going to do this, if in fact that's the collective view, we are probably venturing into having to raise some revenue. Simple as that. And then if you overlay paid family leave, that is also expensive. And then universal school meals, which would be, and people conflate universal school meals with feeding hungry kids. It's not, it's paying all children regardless of income. But that comes at a $30 million price tag. So, but it does nothing more to address the fact that, I don't know at the St. Johnsbury school, but you've got a significant number of kids you probably send home with backpacks because they are going to be hungry. So the question I say to everybody, where would you want to spend that first dollar? Do you want to spend it, could we do more for the very kids that in fact are hungry at night or on weekends or whatever. So that's a $30 million. So, and there are more out there. So that's what I'm saying, it'll get pared down.
Let me just add on to what Jane just said. Jane said we don't have encyclopedic knowledge about everything, but I think maybe she's demonstrated that she actually does. But the other factor, of course, is, in addition to everything that she pointed out, is that what we really need here is more people paying taxes. We need to expand our tax base. And in order to do that, we need to provide the kinds of basic services and provide for the basic needs that people have, which include childcare and housing, and actually paid family leave insurance is an important thing that would draw people here as well. So there's a balance. You know, it's a tough balance to strike, but there is a balance here.
Right here.
Hi, I'm Tracy Gilman. I have a small business in Lyndonville. So I was just wondering, are there any new sources of revenue, rather than moving money around and taxes? Are there any new, is the state maybe courting any new sources of revenue, new thinking, new industry for the state of Vermont to help increase the tax base, the revenue that we will have to pay these bills and services?
And unfortunately, this will have to be the last question.
Let me just answer it quickly, Tracy. And so last year, and I was so happy to see it go because I worked on it for 4 years, we had a major corporate tax income reform, which we think will be very enticing for a lot of companies to come to Vermont that don't necessarily sell most of their stuff in Vermont. So we're hopeful that'll really be an economic driver. Regarding, what are the potential revenues? Actually, one of them we've even passed in my committee. I think the three big ones, and they add up to about $30 million, that there seems to be widespread support, or at least modest support for, is the expansion of sales tax to cloud software, the expansion of sales tax to candy, and sports betting. All three of those come up to about $30 million. The problem is that some of these, the early child care, the RAND study that came out, which is now playing out in the State House, full quote, it's a $256 million ask. So when you start talking about, $256 million, you're talking like, significant increases on the income tax rate or a payroll tax. Those are big numbers. So, what's really important in the end is, what is that? The governor has proposed $56 million more for early child care with no tax increase. And then you have a $256 million with a tax increase. Where are we going to end up? Where's the sweet spot? Where do we end up? I don't know the answer to that after the 4th.
I just wanted to say, I'm sorry, we're going to have to close down on answers. But that does not mean you don't have a voice. We will continue to monitor these issues, whether it's housing, economic development, broadband, some of the very issues they brought here. We're going to keep on top of those. Check out our Facebook page, Northeast Kingdom Chamber page, our Facebook page, and we'll continue to update people. If you have issues you want to get to us, you can do it through that, or call us. My card is right over there. So keep us apprised and keep us informed, because we need to hear that as a chamber.
Yep, so we'll end this formal part of our legislative breakfast this morning. Thank you to the legislators who came today. I'm going to reach out to the rep from my district and say, why weren't you here this morning? So you can do the same. The next one is February 27th. That's a Monday. Be right here, same location, 8 o'clock in the morning. Hope to see you there. Thank you.